An 8-year-old girl's simple question silenced a crowded town hall and left the president sharing a deeply personal story about faith, loss, and redemption. What happened next moved everyone to tears. The church fellowship hall in Shreveport, Louisiana, usually reserved for Sunday potlucks and Bible study, had an unusual air that evening. The sound of folding chairs scraping against the polished floor mixed with murmured conversations as people took their seats. At the front of the room, the president stood tall, his unmistakable presence filling the modest hall. His expression, usually commanding, was subdued tonight, as if sensing the weight of the moment. The audience, a mix of families, retirees, and local residents, listened as he spoke about policies, achievements, and the future of America. The applause was polite, but the energy lacked the electricity of his usual rallies. People came expecting a speech, but they had no idea the night was about to take a deeply personal turn. Amidst the crowd, one small figure stood out, not because of her size, but because of her quiet intensity. 8-year-old Lily, dressed in her best Sunday dress, clutched an old leather-bound Bible to her chest. It had belonged to her late grandmother, its pages worn, its gold lettering faded. Before they arrived, her mother had whispered, "You can ask him, but only if you're brave enough and only if you truly mean it." Lily had rehearsed her question for weeks, scribbling it in her notebook at recess, murmuring it under her breath at night. It wasn't a childish curiosity, it was a question that weighed on her soul. As the floor opened for questions, adults eagerly stepped forward, asking about national policies and local concerns. Some even offered light-hearted compliments about the president's iconic red tie. The mood was predictable. Lily hesitated, shrinking into her seat, but her mother's gentle nudge was all it took. Her heart pounded as she stood on wobbly legs, gripping her Bible tighter than ever. The crowd noticed. Whispers rippled through the room. By the time she reached the microphone, a hush had settled. The contrast was striking. This tiny girl, standing before the most powerful man in the country. The president's gaze softened as he looked down at her. His voice, usually commanding, turned gentle. "And what's your question, young lady?" Lily swallowed hard, her knuckles turning white around the worn leather cover of her Bible. Then, with a voice that trembled but refused to break, she asked, "Mr. President, what does God mean to you?" The silence was instant and absolute. The air in the room thickened. The president, known for his quick comebacks and unwavering confidence, didn't answer right away. For a moment, he just stared at Lily, then at the Bible in her hands. Something in his demeanor shifted. The room leaned in, every heartbeat hanging on what would come next. He exhaled slowly, then spoke. "That's a big question," he admitted, his voice quieter than before. "And it's not one I've always had the answer to." A murmur spread through the audience. The president, known for his unshakable confidence, was admitting uncertainty. He looked at Lily again, then at the crowd. "When I was about your age," he continued, "I had a lot of questions about God too. My parents took me to church every Sunday. I remember staring at the stained glass windows, wondering if God was really listening to me." The audience remained motionless, eyes fixed on him. This wasn't a speech, this was something real. "My father used to tell me faith is like a ladder," he went on. "You climb it one step at a time, even when you're afraid you might fall." Lily didn't blink, she was absorbing every word. The president shifted slightly, his tone turning more personal. "But as I got older, life threw challenges my way. I faced loss, failure, and moments when I wasn't sure if I could keep going. And in those times, I didn't always feel like God was with me. Sometimes, I was angry at him. Other times, I thought maybe he had given up on me altogether. But I'll tell you this," the president said, voice firming up. "Even in my worst moments, when I thought I was alone, I realized faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about believing that even when you can't see the whole picture, there's a purpose. There's something greater at work." Lily's grip on the Bible loosened slightly, The weight of her question, the uncertainty she had carried, seemed a little lighter. The president took a step away from the podium. "And God, to me," he said slowly, "is that purpose. He's the reminder that even when we fall, even when we fail, we're not done. He's the one who tells us to keep climbing even when the ladder feels like it's breaking beneath us." Lily's eyes shimmered. A single tear slipped down her cheek, but she didn't look away. The crowd murmured softly, sensing that something extraordinary had just unfolded. A man near the back, his face lined with years of struggle, raised his hand. "Mr. President," he said, his voice steady, "I'd spent years trying to figure out my own faith. Hearing you talk about anger, doubt, and hope makes me wonder, are we all just afraid to admit we're struggling?" The president didn't hesitate this time. He met the man's gaze and spoke with conviction. "I think a lot of us are," he said. "Faith isn't easy. It's messy. It's complicated. And sometimes it feels like you're just shouting into the void. But the truth is that's what makes it powerful. It's not about being perfect. It's about trying, even when you don't have all the answers." A soft applause rippled through the room, slow at first, then growing. Lily's voice broke through the noise. "My grandma used to say faith is like planting seeds," she said. "You don't always see them grow right away, but you have to believe they will." The president smiled. His expression completely changed from when the night began. "Your grandma sounds like a very wise woman," he said, and she was right. As the applause swelled, strangers exchanged knowing glances. They hadn't just attended a town hall. They had witnessed something deeper, a conversation about faith, doubt, and the strength to keep climbing. And all of it had started with one small girl and a question no one else dared ask.